Checkpoints are established by proper HOA security protocols.
You're committing federal civil rights violations, causing harm.
The man in the fake police uniform raised his hand, and the ambulance stopped. No emergency vehicles without advance HOA authorization, he said, standing at a roadblock that had no legal right to exist. My wife Sarah was inside that ambulance. Diabetic emergency, blood sugar crashing, 8 minutes from our home. And this fake cop in an unauthorized uniform with a counterfeit badge was demanding paperwork before letting paramedics pass. What he didn't know, what Victoria Cross didn't know when she created her neighborhood security patrol, was that I'm an FBI special agent, Civil Rights Division. I prosecute people who do exactly what her fake officers were doing. I'm James Carter, 16 years with the Bureau, specializing in color of law violations. That's the legal term for when someone pretends to have authority they don't possess and uses that fake authority to deprive people of their rights. It's a federal felony under 18 U.S.C. 242. And I just watched Victoria's patrol commit it while blocking my wife's ambulance. If you've ever watched someone with fake authority endanger the person you love most, hit subscribe now because you'll understand what happened next. The fake officer, Jake Morrison, I'd learn later, a 33-year-old former shopping mall security guard, stood his ground at the roadblock. Behind him, 2 more patrol members in matching uniforms flanked patrol vehicles with emergency-style lighting, all of it designed to look official, none of it legal. "Sir, we need HOA authorization for emergency vehicle access," Morrison repeated to the ambulance driver. "It's protocol. I can't let you through without proper documentation." Through the ambulance window, I could see Sarah, pale, trembling. The paramedic beside her working fast, but needing to get her to the hospital. Every second mattered when blood sugar dropped this low. Every minute of delay increased the risk of permanent complications. I documented everything with my phone, the fake uniforms, the counterfeit badges that looked remarkably like Texas State Police, the roadblock on a public street where no HOA has jurisdiction, the ambulance being illegally detained while my wife suffered inside. "Let the ambulance through," I said, approaching Morrison. "You have no legal authority to block emergency vehicles. This is a public street, not HOA property." The board president's voice came through Morrison's radio. "Maintain position. No unauthorized vehicles without proper advance notice. That's the protocol we established." Protocol. Victoria Cross had written protocols for her fake police force like she was running a legitimate law enforcement agency. She'd given her patrol official-looking procedure manuals, radio codes, checkpoint guidelines, all of it meaningless because HOAs don't have policing powers regardless of what their bylaws claim. "I'm calling actual police," the ambulance driver said, pulling out his phone. "We are the authorized security for this community," Morrison responded, hand moving to the radio on his belt in a gesture that mimicked real officers. "This checkpoint is established under HOA authority." 8 minutes. That's how long the argument lasted before Morrison finally, reluctantly, moved aside. 8 minutes of my wife experiencing hypoglycemic emergency while fake cops played law enforcement at an illegal roadblock. The ambulance rushed past. I followed in my car, rage mixing with fear. Sarah needed immediate care, but she also needed justice for what Victoria's unauthorized patrol had just done. At the hospital, paramedics rushed Sarah to emergency. Her blood sugar had dropped to dangerous levels. Another few minutes, and she could have slipped into diabetic coma. The 8-minute delay at Victoria's illegal roadblock had pushed her to the edge of life-threatening complications. I sat in the waiting room, watching Sarah's hands shake as nurses worked to stabilize her blood sugar. The trembling wasn't just from the hypoglycemia. It was nerve damage beginning to set in because treatment had been delayed too long. Those 8 minutes cost my wife permanent injury to the nerves in her hands and feet. Medical records would later prove that immediate treatment, the treatment she would have received 8 minutes sooner without the roadblock, would have prevented the nerve damage entirely. Victoria Cross's fake police force hadn't just violated federal law, they'd caused lasting harm to my wife while playing pretend law enforcement on a public street. The woman who created that patrol had no idea she'd just blocked an FBI agent's wife, had no idea that her unauthorized security force had been committing federal felonies for however long they'd been operating, had no idea that those fake badges and illegal roadblocks were about to cost her everything. I'm trained to stay professional, to separate personal from investigative, but watching my wife's hands shake from permanent nerve damage that could have been prevented made something very clear. Victoria's fake authority had crossed from HOA overreach into federal crime, and I had both the expertise and the motivation to make sure she faced every consequence she'd earned. Some people learn too late that impersonating law enforcement carries serious prison time. Victoria Cross was about to get that education. The neurologist's diagnosis came 3 hours after Sarah's blood sugar stabilized. Peripheral neuropathy, permanent nerve damage in her hands and feet caused by prolonged hypoglycemia, the kind of damage that happens when diabetic emergencies aren't treated fast enough. If she'd received treatment 8 minutes sooner, Dr. Patel said, reviewing the timeline, the nerve damage likely would have been prevented. Hypoglycemia this severe creates a critical window. Every minute counts. 8 minutes. The exact amount of time Victoria's fake roadblock had delayed the ambulance. Sarah lay in the hospital bed, staring at her hands. They trembled slightly, a tremor that would never fully go away. "I can't hold a coffee cup steady anymore," she said quietly, "and my feet feel numb, like they're not completely mine." I documented Dr. Patel's assessment, medical evidence proving the delay caused permanent injury, evidence that would matter when federal prosecutors reviewed what Victoria's patrol had done. The HOA citation arrived while Sarah was still in ICU, hand-delivered to our home, photographed by our doorbell camera, official-looking envelope with the Willowbrook Community Security Patrol logo. Violation: unauthorized emergency vehicle access without advance approval. Fine, you're $1,500. Repeat violations may result in restricted community access privileges. All future emergency service requests must be submitted in writing 48 hours in advance to Community Security Patrol for authorization review. I read it 3 times, each time finding new layers of illegal authority. Victoria's patrol was demanding advance notice for ambulances, claiming power to restrict emergency access, treating life-threatening medical crises like they required HOA permission. The citation was signed by Victoria Cross, board president and chief security administrator, a title she'd apparently given herself while building what amounted to a private police force. I called my FBI supervisor, Karen Rodriguez. "I need to recuse myself from a civil rights investigation. My wife was the victim, but someone needs to look at what's happening in my HOA." "What kind of civil rights violation?" Karen's voice shifted from colleague to investigator. "Color of law deprivation of rights. Fake security patrol operating like law enforcement. They established an illegal roadblock, blocked an ambulance during a medical emergency, demanded authorization paperwork for emergency vehicle access. All while wearing uniforms and badges designed to look like Texas State Police." Karen was quiet for a moment. "They blocked your wife's ambulance?" "For 8 minutes. Long enough to cause permanent nerve damage that immediate treatment would have prevented. I've got medical documentation proving causation." I pulled up the photos on my phone. "And I've got video of fake officers in counterfeit uniforms operating an unauthorized checkpoint on a public street. Send everything to me. I'll assign agents who aren't personally involved." Karen's tone had gone from curious to prosecutorial. "James, if what you're describing is accurate, this isn't just HOA overreach. This is systematic impersonation of law enforcement and conspiracy to deprive civil rights. There's more. The citation they just sent demands 48-hour advance notice for future emergency services. They're claiming authority to pre-approve ambulance calls. That's insane and illegal on about 6 different levels," I heard Karen typing. "How long has this patrol been operating?" "I don't know yet, but the uniforms are professional quality. The vehicles have emergency lighting. The badges look official. This isn't something they set up last week. This is an organized operation." After hanging up with Karen, I started researching Victoria's patrol. The HOA website had an entire section devoted to community security services. Photos of uniformed officers, patrol vehicles, equipment that looked like it belonged to a police department, not an HOA. The patrol had been operating for 5 years. 5 years of Victoria Cross building what she called comprehensive neighborhood protection, and what federal law would call impersonating law enforcement. The website listed their services: 24/7 patrol coverage, traffic enforcement, security checkpoints, vehicle inspections, compliance verification. All activities that only actual law enforcement has authority to conduct. I found the budget allocations. Over 5 years, Victoria had spent $380,000 in HOA funds on the patrol. Vehicles, uniforms, equipment, salaries for 4 full-time officers. All of it funded by residents who had no idea their HOA dues were being used to create a fake police force. My doorbell rang. Marcus Webb, my neighbor and HOA board member, stood on my porch looking like a man who'd aged a decade overnight. "I saw what happened at the checkpoint," Marcus said. "I watched from my window, watched them block the ambulance, watched them argue while Sarah—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "You're on the board. You had to know about the patrol." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I helped design it. Victoria asked me to consult because I spent 30 years as a Texas state trooper. She paid me, she called it consulting fees, $45,000 over 3 years." He looked at Sarah's car in the driveway, knowing she was in the hospital. "I told her how to make it look professional, how to structure the uniforms, the protocols, the checkpoint procedures. I thought I was helping create legitimate security. Marcus, you helped her create a fake police force. Everything you designed, the uniforms, the checkpoints, the protocols, it's all illegal. HOAs don't have law enforcement authority no matter how professional they look." "I know," his voice cracked. "I knew it was pushing boundaries. But Victoria kept saying the bylaws gave her authority, that we were just enforcing community rules. And I needed the money. Retirement isn't as comfortable as I'd planned. She blocked my wife's ambulance while Sarah was having a diabetic emergency. The delay caused permanent nerve damage." Marcus closed his eyes. I watched it happen. Stood at my window watching Morrison argue with the paramedics, watching the minutes tick by. And I did nothing because I was afraid Victoria would expose the consulting fees, that I'd lose my state pension if anyone knew I'd taken money to help design this. "You're a former state trooper. You know exactly what laws Victoria's breaking. Every single one." Marcus pulled out his phone. "And I've got evidence. Body cam footage from the patrol officers. Victoria made them wear cameras to document their professionalism. They've been recording every illegal detention, every fake traffic stop, every checkpoint, 5 years of federal crimes, all on video." Marcus Webb's hands shook as he stood in my living room, the same tremor I'd seen in Sarah's hands at the hospital. But his wasn't from nerve damage. It was from 30 years of law enforcement training colliding with 3 years of helping Victoria Cross build something he knew was illegal. "The body cam footage is stored on the HOA server," Marcus said, sitting heavily on my couch. His fingers drummed against his knee, then stopped, then started again. Nervous energy seeking release. "Victoria wanted everything documented, thought it made the patrol look more legitimate, more professional, like real police." "How much footage are we talking about?" 5 years. Every patrol shift, every checkpoint, every interaction with residents. Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands, nearly dropped it, caught it. "I have admin access to the server. Victoria gave it to me when I was consulting on the setup." He scrolled through files, and I watched his face, jaw clenched, eyes not quite meeting mine, guilt written in every micro-expression. This was a man who'd spent 3 decades upholding the law, now confronting that he'd helped someone systematically violate it. "Here," Marcus said, pulling up a video dated 18 months ago. "This is Morrison conducting a traffic stop. Watch." The footage showed patrol officer Jake Morrison pulling over a resident at the neighborhood entrance. The resident's confusion was evident even through the body cam. "I wasn't speeding," and "Are you actual police?" Morrison's response, delivered with the authority Victoria had taught him. "I'm authorized security enforcement for Willowbrook Estates. License and registration, please." The resident complied, handed over documents they had no legal obligation to provide. Morrison wrote them a citation for excessive speed in residential zone, with a $500 fine payable to the HOA. "That's illegal detention," I said. "False imprisonment, impersonating a peace officer, and extortion." "I know." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. He pulled up another video. "Here's one from 2 years ago. They're conducting vehicle searches. This footage showed 2 patrol members, Derek Chen and Amanda Price, I'd learn their names later, stopping a teenage resident returning from college. They demanded to search his vehicle for community safety compliance. The kid, intimidated by the uniforms and official demeanor, agreed. They found alcohol in his trunk, Marcus said. He was 21, legally allowed to possess it. But Victoria's patrol confiscated it, issued a $750 fine for contraband violation of community standards, and threatened to report him to actual police if he didn't pay. I watched video after video. Residents stopped at checkpoints, demanded to show identification, asked invasive questions about where they were going and why. Elderly homeowners intimidated into paying fines for violations that didn't exist. Families searched without warrants, without authority, without any legal basis. "How many residents has the patrol detained?" I asked. Marcus scrolled through logs he'd kept as part of his consulting work. His hand trembled harder as he pulled up the spreadsheet. 47 documented detentions over 3 years, not counting the routine checkpoint stops, just the cases where they issued citations or conducted searches. 47 civil rights violations, 47 potential federal charges. At least. Marcus set his phone down, clasped his hands together to stop the shaking. "James, I'm a retired state trooper. I swore an oath to protect and serve, and I helped Victoria build a system that's been terrorizing residents for years. I took her money, $45,000 in consulting fees, to design protocols I knew pushed legal boundaries. Why are you telling me this now? You watched them block Sarah's ambulance. You could have stayed silent, protected yourself." Marcus finally met my eyes. "Because I watched your wife almost die while fake cops I helped train played law enforcement at a roadblock I helped design. I stood at my window counting the minutes, knowing every second mattered, and I did nothing." His voice cracked. "I can't. I won't protect Victoria anymore. Not after this. Not after Sarah. She'll destroy you, expose the consulting fees, go after your pension. Let her try. I've been a coward for 3 years. Took her money and looked the other way while she built a private police force. But I'm still a cop, James. Deep down, under all the compromises and rationalizations, I'm still a cop, and cops don't let people get hurt when they can stop it." He pulled up one more file on his phone. "This is Victoria's personal folder. Her instructions to patrol members, how to conduct traffic stops, how to intimidate residents into compliance, how to use the uniforms and badges to project authority. She wrote training manuals for impersonating law enforcement. I need all of it. Every video, every document, every piece of evidence showing the patrol's operations." Marcus nodded, hands still shaking but resolve settling into his expression. "I'll download everything tonight. The server logs, the body cam footage, the financial records showing how much HOA money she spent building this. All of it. Victoria will know you accessed the files. I don't care anymore. 30 years as a Texas state trooper, and I'm not ending my law enforcement career by helping someone run a fake police department." He stood, steadier now, the trembling in his hands easing as he committed to action. "Your wife is in the hospital with permanent nerve damage because I helped Victoria build a roadblock that had no right to exist. I'm going to make sure every fake cop who blocked that ambulance faces justice. The FBI will need your testimony. Federal prosecutors will question everything. The consulting fees, your role in designing the patrol, why you stayed silent. I'll testify. I'll admit everything. I'd rather lose my pension by telling the truth than keep it by hiding federal crimes." Marcus walked to the door, then turned back. "Sarah's a good person. She didn't deserve this. None of the 47 families Victoria targeted deserved this. It's time someone with actual law enforcement authority shut down her fake police force." After Marcus left, I sat alone in my living room thinking about the evidence he was gathering. 5 years of body cam footage, 47 illegal detentions, training manuals for impersonating peace officers, financial records showing $380,000 in HOA funds used to build an unauthorized law enforcement operation. Victoria Cross had created exactly the kind of systematic civil rights violation my FBI division was designed to prosecute. And she'd done it while my wife and I lived in her neighborhood, unaware that our HOA president was running a criminal enterprise disguised as community security. The board president had no idea that blocking one ambulance would trigger a federal investigation that would expose everything. Some authority is real. Some is just costumes and confidence. Victoria was about to learn the difference. The HOA administration office smelled like fresh printer paper and the kind of authority that comes from 10 consecutive terms unchallenged. Victoria Cross sat behind her desk reviewing what she called security incident reports, like she was running a police precinct instead of a neighborhood association. "Mr. Carter," she said without looking up from her paperwork, "I assume you're here about the emergency vehicle citation." I'm here about you operating an illegal checkpoint that delayed my wife's ambulance during a diabetic emergency. I stayed standing, kept my voice level. 8 minutes of delay that caused permanent nerve damage. The board president finally looked at me, and I saw the same expression I'd seen in corrupt officials I'd investigated over 16 years. Absolute conviction that their authority was legitimate. The checkpoint is authorized by HOA bylaws, Section 12, Subsection 4. The board maintains authority to regulate vehicular access to community property for safety and security purposes. Public streets aren't community property. You don't have jurisdiction over emergency vehicle access. No HOA does. Willowbrook Estates is a private community. Our bylaws clearly establish security protocols. Your bylaws don't override state and federal law. Only actual law enforcement can establish roadblocks, conduct traffic stops, or demand identification from citizens. I pulled out my phone, showed her the video I'd recorded. Your patrol is operating illegally, and they just caused measurable harm to my wife. Victoria watched the footage of her fake officers blocking the ambulance. No shame in her expression, no recognition that anything was wrong. Just annoyance that someone was questioning her authority. Morrison followed established protocol, she said. Emergency vehicles require advance authorization for community access. It's clearly stated in the procedures manual I distributed to all patrol officers. You don't have authority to require authorization for emergency vehicles. Paramedics don't need HOA permission to respond to 911 calls. Perhaps if residents notified security of planned medical emergencies. Planned medical emergencies? My FBI training kept my tone professional, but rage was burning underneath. My wife had a hypoglycemic episode. There's no planning for when blood sugar crashes. Paramedics needed immediate access, and your fake cops blocked them. Victoria's jaw tightened. Mr. Carter, I don't appreciate your characterization of our professionally trained security personnel as fake cops. They've received extensive training, they follow strict protocols, and they maintain order in this community. Who trained them? Who certified them as peace officers? What state agency issued their law enforcement credentials? The security consultant's pause told me everything. They're trained security personnel operating under HOA authority. There's no such thing as HOA authority to conduct law enforcement activities. Your patrol is impersonating peace officers. Every traffic stop, every checkpoint, every time they demand ID, it's a crime, federal and state. That's absurd. I've invested significant resources into building a professional security operation that protects property values and maintains community standards. Victoria pulled out a folder thick with documents. Every resident receives these protocols when they move in. Emergency vehicle access procedures, traffic regulations, security checkpoint requirements. No one has objected until now. Because you've been intimidating them with fake authority for 5 years. I leaned forward. How much HOA money have you spent on this patrol? That's privileged board financial information. It's public record. HOA budgets are available to all homeowners. I've seen the allocations, $380,000 over 5 years for vehicles, uniforms, equipment, salaries. You built an entire fake police department with community dues. Victoria stood, and I saw the former mall security supervisor who'd craved law enforcement authority she'd never earned. I built a security force that actually protects residents instead of waiting for police who take 20 minutes to respond. My patrol provides immediate professional security services. Your patrol provides illegal detention and impersonation of law enforcement. There's a reason HOAs can't have their own police forces, Victoria, because what you're calling security services is actually deprivation of civil rights under color of authority. You're not a lawyer. I'm an FBI special agent, Civil Rights Division. I prosecute people who abuse authority they don't possess. I let that sink in. Specifically, I prosecute violations of 18 U.S.C. 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. That's what your patrol has been doing for 5 years. The board president's confidence finally cracked, just slightly, just enough to show she understood she'd been talking to someone who actually knew the law she'd been breaking. Your wife's citation stands, Victoria said, recovering quickly. And future emergency vehicle access will require proper authorization. Those are the protocols I've established. Those protocols are federal crimes. Every checkpoint, every traffic stop, every time your fake officers demand ID, it's impersonating peace officers and illegal detention. I pulled out another document. This is Dr. Patel's medical assessment. Your 8-minute delay caused permanent peripheral neuropathy in my wife's hands and feet, nerve damage that would have been prevented with immediate treatment. That's unfortunate, but Morrison was following proper procedure. Morrison was committing felony deprivation of rights causing bodily injury. That's a 10-year maximum sentence under federal law. I stood. I've reported this to the FBI Civil Rights Division. Federal agents are investigating your patrol's operations, every illegal detention, every fake traffic stop, every checkpoint over 5 years. Victoria sat back down, and I saw calculation replacing confidence. You're using your FBI position to threaten HOA security because you're upset about a citation. I'm reporting federal crimes I witnessed and have evidence of. The fact that my wife was harmed makes me a victim, not the investigator. Other agents will handle the case. I moved toward the door. But you should know, I've spent 16 years prosecuting color of law violations. I know exactly what evidence prosecutors need, and your patrol has been creating that evidence every time they put on those fake uniforms. This is harassment. I'll be contacting my attorney. Good, you're going to need one. Federal charges for civil rights violations, state charges for impersonating peace officers, potential RICO conspiracy for running criminal enterprise through HOA position. I paused at the door. My wife has permanent nerve damage because your fake cops blocked an ambulance. That's not an HOA citation issue. That's federal prosecution territory. I left Victoria in her office surrounded by her security protocols and procedure manuals, all the paperwork she thought gave her authority to run a private police force. None of it would matter when federal prosecutors reviewed what she'd actually been doing. Some people believe that writing official-looking rules makes illegal activity legitimate. Victoria Cross had built 5 years of detailed procedures for impersonating law enforcement, and she had no idea that every protocol, every manual, every training document was just more evidence of systematic federal crimes. The fake police chief would learn soon enough that real authority doesn't come from badges you buy online and uniforms you design yourself. It comes from actual legal power, and hers was about to be exposed as completely counterfeit. The FBI Dallas field office conference room felt both familiar and strange. Familiar because I'd worked cases here for 16 years. Strange because today I was the victim instead of the investigator. Special Agent Karen Rodriguez sat across from me with 2 other Civil Rights Division agents I'd worked with before. Walk me through what happened at the Roadblock, Karen said, recorder running, treating this like any other civil rights investigation, which it was, except this time the victim was her colleague's wife. I laid out the timeline, Sarah's hypoglycemic episode, the 911 call, the ambulance arriving at Willowbrook's entrance gate, Morrison and 2 other patrol members establishing a roadblock, 8 minutes of arguing while Sarah's condition worsened. They wouldn't let the ambulance pass without proper HOA authorization paperwork, I said. Morrison claimed it was established protocol for emergency vehicle access. Agent Michael Chen pulled up the video I'd recorded. These uniforms are designed to look like law enforcement. The badges, the vehicles with emergency lighting, the radio equipment. This is deliberate impersonation. How long has this patrol been operating? Karen asked. 5 years according to the HOA website. Victoria calls it Community Security Services. 4 full-time officers, 24/7 coverage, vehicles, equipment. She spent $380,000 in HOA funds building it. Agent Sarah Park was reviewing the body cam footage Marcus had started uploading to a secure server. James, there are dozens of illegal detentions here. Residents being stopped at checkpoints, demanded to show ID, vehicles searched without consent or probable cause, all while the patrol members are wearing these fake law enforcement uniforms. Marcus Webb, retired state trooper, HOA board member, helped Victoria design the patrol. He's cooperating, providing access to all 5 years of footage. Why is he cooperating? Chen asked. Guilt. He watched them block my wife's ambulance from his window, watched the 8-minute delay. He knows his consulting helped build a system that just caused permanent harm to someone. I pulled out my phone, showed them Dr. Patel's medical report. Sarah has peripheral neuropathy now, permanent nerve damage in her hands and feet. The doctor confirmed the 8-minute delay directly caused it. Immediate treatment would have prevented the damage. Karen read the medical assessment, and I saw her expression shift from investigator to someone who understood this wasn't just about illegal uniforms anymore. Deprivation of rights causing bodily injury. That elevates this from 1 year maximum to 10 years. Victoria has no idea the roadblock caused measurable harm. She thinks this is about an HOA citation dispute. I pulled up the citation she'd sent. She's demanding 48-hour advance notice for future emergency services, claiming authority to pre-approve ambulance calls. Park looked up from the body cam footage. How many residents has the patrol detained? Marcus's logs show 47 documented cases over 3 years. Traffic stops, vehicle searches, checkpoint detentions, all illegal. 47 potential federal charges, Chen said, plus however many routine checkpoint stops weren't logged. This is systematic civil rights violation using HOA position as cover. Karen was already building the case structure I recognized from years of working together. We need to interview the detained residents, document the pattern, establish that Victoria knew the patrol lacked legal authority, but operated it anyway. That proves intent for color of law prosecution. The patrol collected fines, I said. Marcus's financial records show $34,000 in citations over 3 years. Speeding violations, vehicle infractions, community standards penalties, all unauthorized, all collected under threat of fake law enforcement authority. That's extortion, Park said, using color of authority to collect money through intimidation. Chen pulled up images of the patrol vehicles. These aren't just security cars. They're designed to look like police cruisers. Emergency lighting, official-looking paint schemes, the works. This is deliberate impersonation, not accidental overreach. Karen reviewed the evidence we'd compiled in just 2 days. Video of the roadblock, body cam footage of illegal detentions, financial records showing unauthorized fines, medical proof of harm caused, Marcus's testimony about helping design it all. This is federal prosecution territory, she said. 18 U.S.C. 242 for deprivation of rights, 18 U.S.C. 912 for impersonating officers, 18 U.S.C. 241 for conspiracy against rights. With the bodily injury to Sarah, we're looking at serious prison time. What about state charges? I asked. I'm coordinating with Texas Rangers, Karen said. Captain David Walsh is reviewing for state impersonation charges, operating illegal roadblock, false imprisonment. Victoria and her patrol members face both federal and state prosecution. Park was still reviewing body cam footage. Some of these detentions involve minors, teenagers stopped and searched. That adds child-related enhancements. The training manuals Victoria created, Chen added, pulling up documents Marcus had provided. She literally wrote procedures for conducting traffic stops, checkpoint operations, suspect interrogation. This is a how-to guide for impersonating law enforcement. Karen looked at me. James, you understand you're a witness in this case, not an investigator. Your wife is the primary victim. You can consult on legal strategy, but you can't be involved in evidence collection or witness interviews. I know, I'm recused, but I can tell you where to look, what to ask, how Victoria's been operating. How many patrol members total? 4 full-time officers. Jake Morrison, Derek Chen, Amanda Price, Ryan Brooks. All former security guards, none with any law enforcement certification. Victoria recruited them specifically because they'd follow her protocols without questioning legal authority. Chen pulled up Morrison's employment history. Shopping mall security for 6 years. No police academy, no post certification, no legal authority to conduct traffic stops or detain citizens. But he's got a uniform that looks official and a badge Victoria gave him, so he thinks he can act like a cop, Park said. That's the textbook definition of impersonating a peace officer. Karen closed her laptop. We're opening a full investigation. Civil Rights Division will handle federal charges. We'll coordinate with Texas Rangers on state prosecution, and we'll interview all 47 detained residents to document the pattern. What about Victoria? I asked. She's still operating the patrol right now. Still running checkpoints, still claiming authority to control emergency vehicle access. We'll send her a cease and desist today. Notify her that the patrol is under federal investigation and any continued operations constitute additional criminal acts. Karen stood. But James, I need you to prepare for what comes next. Victoria's attorney will claim this is personal retaliation. FBI agent angry about a citation using his position to harass HOA president. I reported federal crimes I witnessed. The fact that my wife was harmed doesn't change the illegality of what Victoria's patrol was doing. I know, but defense attorneys will make it personal anyway. They'll argue selective prosecution, abuse of federal authority, vendetta disguised as civil rights investigation. Karen met my eyes. Can you handle watching Sarah testify about her permanent nerve damage? Watching medical experts explain how 8 minutes of delay caused lasting injury? Sitting through trial as a witness instead of a prosecutor? I thought about Sarah's hands trembling as she tried to hold her coffee cup this morning. About her feet going numb. About the permanent damage that would never heal. I can handle it, I said. Because someone needs to stop Victoria from running a fake police force. And if it takes federal prosecution to teach her that HOA presidents can't impersonate law enforcement, then that's what happens. Karen nodded. Then let's build the case. Every illegal detention, every fake traffic stop, every checkpoint, every dollar of unauthorized fines. We make this so thorough that Victoria's fake authority gets exposed for exactly what it is, criminal fraud disguised as community security. Sarah sat at our kitchen table trying to button her shirt, and I watched her hands shake with the tremor that would never completely stop. 3 attempts before she got the first button through. 4 for the second. She didn't ask for help. Too stubborn, too determined to maintain independence despite what Victoria's roadblock had cost her. Dr. Patel says the tremor might improve slightly with therapy, Sarah said, finally finishing the buttons, but the nerve damage is permanent, hands and feet. She looked at me with eyes that held both resignation and rage. 8 minutes, James. That's all it would have taken. 8 minutes sooner and I wouldn't have this. I pulled up the medical timeline Dr. Patel had documented. Precise, clinical, devastating. Sarah's blood sugar had dropped to 45 millers/ground DL when the ambulance arrived at our home. Critical, but treatable. During the 8-minute roadblock delay, it fell to 32 mg/DL. The range where permanent neurological damage begins. The hypoglycemia triggered peripheral neuropathy because treatment was delayed past the critical intervention window, Dr. Patel's report stated. Immediate glucose administration upon ambulance arrival would have prevented nerve damage. The 8-minute delay allowed blood sugar to drop below the threshold where permanent injury occurs. Medical proof, causation established. Victoria's illegal roadblock hadn't just delayed care. It had directly caused lasting harm. Karen called, I said. FBI is interviewing the 47 residents Marcus identified as being illegally detained, building the pattern for federal prosecution. Sarah flexed her fingers, watching them tremble. How many of them were hurt like me? Physically? You're the only one we know of with measurable injury. But emotionally, psychologically, all of them. Elderly residents terrified by fake cops demanding ID. Teenagers traumatized by vehicle searches. Families intimidated into paying fines they didn't legally owe. Victoria really thought she could run a private police force? She's been doing it for 5 years without anyone stopping her. Built it slowly, started with speed monitoring, escalated to traffic citations, then checkpoints, then roadblocks, each step reinforcing her belief that HOA bylaws gave her authority. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text from her school principal. Take whatever time you need. We've got your classes covered. The tremor in her hands made typing a response take 3 times longer than it should have. I'm a teacher, Sarah said quietly. I write on whiteboards, grade papers, help students with hands-on projects. Now I can barely hold a pen steady. She set her phone down. Victoria took my career, my hands, my ability to do the work I love, because she needed to prove she had authority over an ambulance. I documented everything. Sarah's struggles with daily tasks, the medical appointments, the occupational therapy sessions, the accommodations her school was implementing, evidence for the civil lawsuit that would come after criminal prosecution. There's something else, I said, pulling up emails Marcus had provided. Victoria knew the patrol was pushing legal boundaries. She researched HOA authority, consulted with attorneys, got warned multiple times that security patrols can't conduct law enforcement activities. The emails showed a progression of Victoria ignoring legal advice. One attorney had explicitly told her HOAs cannot establish checkpoints, conduct traffic stops, or demand identification from residents. These are law enforcement functions requiring state authority you do not possess. Victoria's response: Our bylaws clearly establish security authority. We'll proceed with professional protocols. She knew, Sarah said, reading the emails. She knew it was illegal and did it anyway. She believed her bylaws overrode state and federal law, thought writing official-looking protocols made illegal activities legitimate. I pulled up the training manuals Victoria had created. She wrote a 47-page procedure manual for her fake cops, how to conduct traffic stops, establish checkpoints, demand compliance from residents, all of it illegal. Sarah read sections of the manual, her trembling hands making the scrolling jerky. Officers will maintain authoritative presence during all resident interactions. Checkpoint procedures require positive identification verification from all entering vehicles. Non-compliance with security directives may result in citation and fine. She looked up. This is a police operations manual written by someone with no police authority. Exactly. And every procedure in that manual is a federal crime when executed by people who aren't actual law enforcement. My phone rang. Karen Rodriguez. James, we've interviewed 23 of the 47 detained residents so far, Karen said. Every single one describes the same pattern. Fake cops in official-looking uniforms demanding ID, conducting searches, issuing citations, several paid fines because they thought the patrol had legal authority. How much in total fines? We're up to $28,000 documented so far, and we're not done interviewing. Victoria collected tens of thousands in unauthorized penalties by impersonating law enforcement authority. That's systematic extortion. It's RICO territory, pattern of criminal activity through organizational position, using the HOA as cover for organized fraud and civil rights violations. Karen paused. There's more. 3 of the detained residents were stopped while trying to access emergency services. One was rushing his wife to the hospital, got delayed 15 minutes at the checkpoint while patrol verified his authorization. Another was meeting an ambulance at the gate, got held up while Morrison demanded proof of medical emergency. Jesus. So Sarah wasn't the only medical emergency they delayed. She's the only one where we can prove permanent harm resulted. But Victoria's patrol has been endangering people for years by treating medical crises like they require HOA permission. Sarah leaned closer, listening to Karen's voice on speaker. Did anyone die because of the delays? Not that we've found, but Sarah's nerve damage is serious bodily injury. Under 18 U.S.C. 242, when deprivation of rights causes bodily injury, the maximum sentence jumps from 1 year to 10 years. Victoria's Roadblock didn't just violate civil rights, it caused measurable, permanent harm. After the call ended, Sarah and I sat in silence, processing what the investigation was uncovering. Victoria hadn't just created an illegal patrol. She'd built a 5-year operation that systematically violated civil rights, extorted money, and endangered lives, all while convinced her HOA bylaws gave her authority. I want to testify, Sarah said, flexing her trembling hands. When this goes to trial, I want the jury to see what 8 minutes of fake authority cost me. It'll be hard. Reliving the ambulance delay, explaining the permanent damage, having defense attorneys question whether the nerve damage was really caused by the roadblock. Let them question. Dr. Patel has the medical timeline. 8 minutes made the difference between full recovery and permanent injury. The jury needs to see that Victoria's fake roadblock had real consequences. Sarah stood, her balance slightly off from the neuropathy in her feet. She took my hands, James. My ability to write, to grade papers, to do my job without shaking. I'm not letting her pretend this was just about enforcing HOA rules. I watched my wife, determined, angry, still adjusting to permanent disability caused by someone playing pretend law enforcement, and understood why federal civil rights laws exist. To protect people from exactly this, from unauthorized authority causing real harm while hiding behind official-looking uniforms and procedural manuals. Victoria Cross thought she'd created professional security. She'd actually created a federal case study in how fake authority becomes criminal tyranny, and Sarah's trembling hands would be the evidence that made a jury understand the stakes. Marcus Webb showed up at my door at 10 p.m. carrying a laptop and a cardboard box that looked like it weighed more than just documents. It carried 3 years of guilt and 30 years of law enforcement integrity, finally refusing to compromise anymore. I've been downloading files for 6 hours, Marcus said, setting the box on my kitchen table. Every body cam video, every financial record, every training manual Victoria created, 5 years of her fake police force, all documented because she thought professional record keeping made it legitimate. He opened the laptop and I saw files organized by year, by officer, by type of violation. Marcus had spent 3 decades as a state trooper building cases. Now he was using those same skills to dismantle what he'd helped create. Here, Marcus said, pulling up a folder labeled Checkpoint Protocols, Revised 2021. This is Victoria's updated procedures after I warned her the checkpoints were legally questionable. She didn't scale back. She added more requirements. The document showed Victoria's response to legal concerns. Double down on authority. All vehicles entering Willowbrook Estates must stop at security checkpoint for verification. Officers will confirm resident status, vehicle registration, and purpose of entry. Non-compliance constitutes trespassing and will result in citation. You told her this was illegal? Marcus's jaw tightened. 3 times. I said HOAs can't demand ID checks, can't operate checkpoints, can't cite people for non-compliance with fake authority. She said the bylaws gave her security powers and my job was to make the procedures look professional, not question her authority. But you kept consulting, kept taking her money. I did. Marcus pulled up financial records. $45,000 over 3 years. And $250 per month to review procedures, train patrol members, help design the uniforms and vehicles. I told myself I was just consulting on security best practices, not helping her impersonate law enforcement. He looked at Sarah, sitting at the table with trembling hands trying to hold her coffee cup. I was lying to myself. I knew exactly what Victoria was building. I just needed the money more than I needed my integrity. Sarah set down her cup before the tremor made her spill it. Why are you helping now? Because I watched them block your ambulance. Stood at my window with my phone in my hand, knowing I should call actual police, knowing every second mattered. And I did nothing because I was afraid Victoria would expose the consulting fees, that I'd lose my pension. Marcus's voice cracked. I'm a former state trooper. I spent 30 years protecting people, and I watched you almost die because I helped someone build a fake police force. He pulled up more files. Body cam footage from the 4 patrol officers. Morrison, Chen, Price, Brooks. Victoria required them to wear cameras during all interactions. She thought it proved their professionalism. Instead, they documented 5 years of federal crimes. The first video showed Morrison conducting a traffic stop 2 years ago, pulling over a resident, demanding license and registration, writing a citation for excessive speed with a $500 fine. The resident, confused and intimidated by the uniform and badge, complied with everything. Morrison has no authority to conduct traffic stops, I said. That's impersonating a peace officer. Every traffic stop in these videos is a separate criminal charge. There are hundreds. Marcus scrolled through files. Morrison alone conducted 89 documented traffic stops over 3 years. Chen has 67. Price has 54. Brooks has 43, all illegal, all while wearing uniforms I helped design to look like Texas State Police. He pulled up photos of the uniforms, navy blue with shoulder patches that read Willowbrook Community Security in official-looking lettering, badges that could pass for law enforcement from a distance, utility belts with equipment that mimicked police gear. I told Victoria the uniforms should clearly say security in large letters, that the badges should look different from police badges. She said residents wouldn't take them seriously unless they looked like real officers. Marcus closed the photos. I should have walked away right then, should have reported her to actual police. Instead, I revised the design to look more professional. You helped her create convincing fake law enforcement. I did. And now I'm going to help federal prosecutors prove every element of 18 U.S.C. 9-2, impersonating officers of the United States. The uniforms, the badges, the vehicles, the protocols, all of it designed to make residents believe Victoria's patrol had legitimate law enforcement authority. He pulled out a thick folder from the box. Financial records showing how Victoria spent $380,000 in HOA funds. Vehicles, $140,000. Uniforms and equipment, $65,000. Salaries for 4 officers, $175,000 over 5 years. All of it itemized, all of it approved by a board that didn't question what she was building. The other board members knew. They knew she was creating a security patrol. They didn't know, or didn't want to know, that she was operating it like a police department. Victoria presented everything as enhanced community protection. The board saw professional-looking officers and expensive equipment and assumed it was legitimate. Sarah leaned forward. Did they know about the roadblock that delayed my ambulance? Marcus met her eyes. Victoria told the board she was implementing emergency vehicle access protocols to prevent unauthorized ambulances and fire trucks from entering without verification. Made it sound like she was preventing fraud, protecting residents. The board approved it without understanding she was claiming authority to control 911 responses. So when Morrison blocked my ambulance, he was following board-approved protocols? He was following Victoria's protocols that the board rubber-stamped without questioning their legality, but that doesn't make it legal. HOAs can't control emergency vehicle access regardless of what their bylaws or board approvals claim. I reviewed the evidence Marcus had brought. Body cam footage of 253 documented illegal interactions. Financial records proving Victoria spent HOA funds building fake law enforcement. Training manuals teaching impersonation techniques. Email trails showing Marcus and others warned her repeatedly about legal boundaries she was crossing. This is enough for federal prosecution, I said. Pattern of civil rights violations, systematic impersonation of law enforcement, conspiracy to deprive residents of constitutional rights. There's one more thing. Marcus pulled up a final document. Victoria's strategic plan for 2024. She was expanding the patrol, wanted to add 2 more officers, purchase a second patrol vehicle, implement traffic enforcement cameras at the entrance. She wrote that the patrol had successfully established authority and now needed to increase capability. She was scaling up her fake police force. She thought it was working. 5 years of residents complying with checkpoints, paying fines, submitting to searches. Every compliance reinforced her belief that she had legitimate authority. Your wife's ambulance delay was just her patrol following established procedures. Sarah's hands shook as she reached for her coffee again. Procedures that caused permanent nerve damage. Marcus looked at her trembling hands, and I saw something break in his expression, the last piece of rationalization crumbling. I'm testifying. Federal court, state court, wherever prosecutors need me. I'll admit everything, the consulting fees, the uniform design, the protocols I helped create. I'll explain how Victoria built this operation deliberately, how she ignored legal warnings, how she escalated year after year. Your pension is worth less than doing the right thing. I'm 64 years old. I can get another job if I have to. But I can't live with knowing I helped Victoria run a fake police force that hurt people. He closed his laptop. I swore an oath 30 years ago to protect and serve. Took me 3 years of compromising that oath to remember what it actually means. I took the evidence Marcus provided. 5 years of Victoria's illegal patrol operation, all documented by someone who'd helped build it and was now helping destroy it. The security consultant had thought having a retired state trooper consult made her fake police force legitimate. Instead, Marcus's expertise would be what proved every element of federal and state impersonation charges. Some redemption comes from finally choosing the right side. Marcus Webb had spent 3 years on the wrong one. Now he was ensuring Victoria's fake authority got exposed for exactly what it was. The federal prosecutor's office in downtown Dallas occupied 3 floors of glass and authority that Victoria Cross would soon become very familiar with. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Torres sat across from me reviewing evidence with the methodical precision of someone who'd prosecuted color of law violations for 20 years. The body cam footage is devastating, Torres said, watching Morrison conduct an illegal traffic stop. He's performing every action of a real traffic stop. Lights, approach, demand for documents, citation, textbook impersonation of a peace officer. 253 documented interactions over 5 years, I said. Everyone captured on camera because Victoria thought professional documentation proved legitimacy. Torres pulled up the uniform comparison analysis an FBI expert had prepared, side-by-side images, Victoria's patrol uniforms next to actual Texas State Trooper uniforms. The similarities were deliberate. Same color scheme, similar badge placement, comparable equipment layout. This isn't accidental resemblance, Torres said. This is intentional design to make residents believe they're dealing with real law enforcement. That's 18 U.S.C. 912, impersonating officers. Each officer, each incident, separate charge. Marcus Webb helped design the uniforms. He's cooperating, willing to testify about Victoria's explicit instructions to make them look like real police. Former state trooper helping create fake police. That adds credibility to the impersonation claims. Torres made notes. What about the civil rights violations? I pulled up Sarah's medical records. 18 U.S.C. 242, deprivation of rights under color of law causing bodily injury. Victoria's Roadblock delayed my wife's ambulance 8 minutes during a diabetic emergency. That delay directly caused permanent peripheral neuropathy. Medical timeline proves causation. Torres read Dr. Patel's assessment, and I watched his prosecutor's instinct recognize what juries would see. Measurable, permanent harm caused by fake authority. Bodily injury enhancement takes this from 1 year maximum to 10 years. Combined with the impersonation charges and the pattern across 47 detained residents, we're looking at serious prison time. How many total charges? Conservative estimate, 18 counts of impersonating officers, 1 for each patrol member for their operational period. 47 counts of deprivation of rights, 1 for each illegally detained resident. 1 count of deprivation causing bodily injury. Sarah's case. RICO conspiracy for using HOA position to facilitate organized criminal activity. We're looking at 60-plus federal counts. Agent Karen Rodriguez joined us with Texas Ranger Captain David Walsh. State charges are stacking up, Walsh said. Impersonating public servant under Texas Penal Code 37.11, operating illegal roadblock, false imprisonment, extortion for the $34,000 in unauthorized fines collected. Are the patrol members cooperating? Torres asked. Karen nodded. Morrison, Chen, Price, and Brooks all want deals. They're claiming they thought Victoria's patrol had legal authority, that they were just following procedures she created. That's not a defense, Torres said. Claiming you didn't know impersonating cops was illegal doesn't make it legal, but their testimony about Victoria's explicit instructions will be useful. Morrison's already given a statement, Karen said, pulling it up. He says Victoria told him during training, residents will only respect authority that looks official. Your uniform, your badge, your demeanor, all of it must project law enforcement presence. Make them believe you have the power to enforce compliance. She literally instructed them to impersonate police, I said, and Morrison recorded the training session. Karen played audio of Victoria conducting patrol orientation, her voice clear and unmistakable. When you conduct traffic stops, you represent law enforcement authority in this community. Residents need to see you as police, respect you as police, comply with you as police. That's how we maintain order. Torres listened to the recording twice. That's consciousness of guilt. She knew they weren't real police, instructed them to act like they were anyway. That proves intent for federal impersonation charges. Walsh pulled up the checkpoint operation logs Marcus had provided. Victoria documented everything: dates, times, officers on duty, residents detained, fines collected. She kept records like she was running an actual police department. Those records are now a roadmap for criminal prosecution, Torres said. Every logged detention is evidence of systematic civil rights violations. Every collected fine is evidence of extortion. Karen showed me something new: financial analysis of where the $34,000 in fines went. Victoria deposited the money into an HOA account she controlled, but the funds weren't used for community expenses. They went into a separate account labeled Security Operations Enhancement Fund. She was pocketing the fines? Effectively. The enhancement fund paid for patrol equipment, vehicles, and bonuses to the 4 officers. Victoria gave herself $12,000 in security administration fees over 3 years. She was profiting from illegal fines collected through fake law enforcement authority. That's embezzlement on top of everything else, Walsh said. Torres was building the prosecution timeline I recognized from years of working civil rights cases. Here's how we structure this. Federal charges go first: impersonation, civil rights violations, RICO conspiracy. We put Morrison, Chen, Price, and Brooks on the stand, testifying that Victoria created this fake police force, instructed them to impersonate officers, taught them to intimidate residents into compliance. Then we show the medical evidence: Sarah's permanent nerve damage caused by the roadblock. We end with the financial records proving Victoria profited from illegal fines. What about Marcus Webb? I asked. He testifies about helping design the patrol, about warning Victoria repeatedly that it was illegal, about taking consulting fees to make it look professional. Torres looked at me. His cooperation is crucial. Former state trooper admitting he helped create fake police ads weight to impersonation charges. He's ready to testify. He understands it might cost him his pension. He's doing it anyway. Karen pulled up the victim list: 47 illegally detained residents. We're still interviewing everyone. So far, 31 have provided statements. Several are elderly, terrified when fake cops demanded their ID. 3 are teenagers who were searched without consent or probable cause. All of them thought the patrol had real authority because of the uniforms and badges. Textbook deprivation of civil rights, Torres said. Victoria created a system that systematically violated constitutional protections by impersonating legitimate authority. Walsh added state charges to the growing list. Operating illegal checkpoint, false imprisonment of 47 residents, extortion, criminal impersonation. Texas will prosecute in parallel with federal charges. Timeline for indictment? I asked. Grand jury presentation in 2 weeks, Torres said. With the evidence we have, body cam footage, medical proof of harm, financial records, victim testimony, cooperating witnesses, indictment is certain. Probably 60-plus federal counts, 40-plus state counts. Will Victoria take a plea? Depends on her attorney's assessment, but with video of her patrol blocking an ambulance, causing permanent injury to your wife, and testimony from her own fake cops about her explicit instructions to impersonate police. Torres shook his head. Any competent attorney will advise her to negotiate. This case is unwinnable at trial. After the meeting, I sat alone in the prosecutor's conference room looking at the evidence we'd compiled in 3 weeks. Victoria had spent 5 years building what she thought was professional security. Federal and state prosecutors saw organized criminal enterprise disguised as HOA authority. The board president who'd claimed emergency vehicles needed her authorization was about to learn that real authority, the kind that comes with badges federal agents actually earned, was now focused on dismantling everything she'd built. Some people believe elaborate procedures and official-looking documents make illegal activities legitimate. Victoria Cross had created 5 years of detailed protocols for impersonating law enforcement, and every procedure, every manual, every training session was now evidence proving systematic federal crimes. The fake police chief would soon discover that actual law enforcement doesn't take kindly to people playing cop, especially when those fake cops block ambulances and cause permanent harm to people they had no authority to detain. The Willowbrook Community Center was packed with residents who'd spent years believing Victoria's patrol had legitimate authority. 47 families filled the room, the ones Marcus's logs identified as being illegally detained, searched, or cited by fake cops who'd worn convincing uniforms and carried badges that looked official enough to demand compliance. I stood at the front with Agent Karen Rodriguez, preparing to explain how their HOA president had been committing federal crimes against them for 5 years, while they paid her salary through community dues. "Thank you all for coming," Karen began. "I'm Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI Civil Rights Division. We're investigating the Willowbrook Community Security Patrol for violations of federal and state law. Specifically, we believe the patrol has been impersonating law enforcement and illegally detaining residents." An elderly woman in the third row raised her hand. Mrs. Chen, according to Marcus's logs, detained twice at checkpoints, paid $800 in fines for vehicle inspection violations. "Are you saying the security patrol isn't real police?" Mrs. Chen asked. "They wear uniforms, they have badges. They told me I had to show them my license and registration." "They're not police," Karen confirmed. "They have no legal authority to demand ID, conduct traffic stops, or issue citations. HOAs cannot operate law enforcement functions regardless of what their bylaws claim." The room erupted in confused anger. Residents who'd paid fines, submitted to searches, complied with checkpoint demands, all realizing they'd been intimidated by fake authority. "I paid $500 for speeding," a younger man said. "Morrison pulled me over, wrote me a ticket, said if I didn't pay, I'd face criminal charges." "That was extortion," Karen said. "Morrison had no authority to conduct traffic stops or issue citations. The money you paid was collected illegally." "Can we get it back?" someone asked. "We're working on restitution. The $34,000 collected in unauthorized fines will be returned to residents who paid." Karen pulled up a map on the projector. "But first, we need your help building the case. Every illegal detention, every fake traffic stop, every checkpoint where you were demanded to show ID, we need you to document what happened." I stepped forward. "Some of you know me. James Carter, resident since 3 years ago. My wife Sarah was in an ambulance blocked at Victoria's checkpoint for 8 minutes during a diabetic emergency. That delay caused permanent nerve damage to her hands and feet." The room went quiet. Several residents knew Sarah. She taught at the local high school, coached debate team, volunteered at community events. Now they were learning her disability was caused by an HOA president playing cop with fake authority. Victoria created protocols requiring emergency vehicles to get advance authorization, I continued. Paramedics had to argue with her fake officers, while my wife's blood sugar dropped to dangerous levels. Medical records prove the 8-minute delay directly caused nerve damage that would have been prevented with immediate treatment. Mrs. Chen stood. I saw that ambulance stopped at the gate. I drove past, saw the patrol arguing with the driver. I thought they were doing their job, protecting the neighborhood. They were committing federal felonies, I said. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law. When fake authority causes bodily injury, it's a 10-year maximum federal sentence. A man in the back raised his voice. Where is Victoria? Shouldn't she be here explaining herself? She's been notified that her patrol is under federal investigation, Karen said. She's been ordered to cease all checkpoint operations, traffic stops, and enforcement activities. Any continued operations constitute additional criminal charges. Is she going to prison? Someone asked. That will be determined by grand jury indictment and trial, Karen said. But the evidence is substantial. Body cam footage of 253 illegal interactions, financial records showing unauthorized fine collection, medical proof that the roadblock caused serious bodily injury. Federal prosecutors are preparing charges. Over the next 2 hours, residents lined up to give statements. Traffic stops they'd submitted to. Vehicle searches they'd allowed. Checkpoint detentions where they'd shown ID because uniforms and badges made them believe compliance was mandatory. Marcus Webb sat quietly in the back, watching the community realize what he'd helped create. Several residents approached him afterward. You were a state trooper, one said. You knew this was illegal. Why didn't you stop her? Marcus met the man's eyes. Because I was taking Victoria's money to help design it. $45,000 over 3 years to make the fake cops look professional. I told myself I was just consulting on security. I was lying. I knew what she was building, and I helped anyway. Jesus, Marcus. I'm testifying against her. Federal and state prosecution. I'll admit everything. The consulting fees, the uniform design, warning her it was illegal, and helping her do it anyway. Marcus stood. I watched James's wife almost die at a roadblock I helped design. I'm done protecting Victoria. I'm done protecting myself. After the community meeting, Karen and I reviewed the statements collected. 47 residents, 47 instances of illegal detention, patterns so clear a first-year law student could prove systematic civil rights violations. This is what juries need to see, Karen said. Not just legal theory about color of law violations, real people, real harm, real intimidation by fake authority that looked convincing enough to demand compliance. I thought about Mrs. Chen paying $800 in fines to fake cops, about the teenager who'd let Morrison search his car because the uniform made him think he had to comply, about Sarah's trembling hands caused by an 8-minute delay at an illegal roadblock. When does the grand jury meet? I asked. Next week. We'll present body cam footage, victim testimony, medical evidence, financial records. Morrison, Chen, Price, and Brooks are all cooperating. They'll testify Victoria explicitly instructed them to impersonate police authority. What are they getting for cooperation? Reduced charges. Prosecution will recommend probation instead of prison time if they testify truthfully about Victoria's role creating and operating the fake police force. Karen closed her laptop. The 4 patrol members were following orders from someone they believed had authority. Victoria's the one who created this system, funded it with HOA money, and instructed them to act like real cops. She's the target. She's the architect. Morrison and the others are witnesses who will prove every element of federal impersonation and civil rights charges. That evening, I drove past Willowbrook's entrance gate. The patrol vehicles were gone, the checkpoint equipment removed, the roadblock that had delayed Sarah's ambulance dismantled. Just an empty gate that had been transformed into an illegal detention site and was now returning to what it should have been, a simple neighborhood entrance. But the damage was done. Sarah's nerve damage permanent. 47 residents traumatized by fake authority. $34,000 extorted through intimidation. 5 years of Victoria Cross playing police chief with badges she bought and uniforms she designed and authority she never possessed. The security consultant had built an elaborate system thinking professional procedures made illegal activities legitimate. Federal prosecutors were about to teach her that impersonating law enforcement carries serious prison time, regardless of how official your fake badges look. The federal grand jury room was closed to me. I was a witness, not an investigator. My wife, the primary victim of crimes I'd normally help prosecute. But Karen kept me updated as Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Torres presented evidence to 23 citizens who would decide whether Victoria Cross faced federal charges. We're leading with the ambulance video, Karen told me over the phone. Jury needs to see Morrison blocking emergency vehicle, needs to understand the 8-minute delay caused measurable harm to Sarah. I was home with Sarah when the call came 2 hours later. The grand jury had returned indictments, 18 counts of impersonating officers of the United States, 18 U.S.C. 9-2, 47 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. 242, 1 count of deprivation of rights causing bodily injury, 18 U.S.C. 242 enhanced, 3 counts of conspiracy against rights, 18 U.S.C. 241, 5 counts of wire fraud related to collecting illegal fines through electronic transfers, RICO conspiracy, using HOA position to facilitate organized criminal enterprise, 74 federal charges total, each carrying potential prison time. Texas Rangers are filing state charges tomorrow, Karen said. Criminal impersonation of public servant, operating illegal roadblock, false imprisonment, extortion. Victoria's looking at dual prosecution, federal and state. When's the arrest? Tomorrow morning. Federal marshals and Texas Rangers coordinating. They'll take her into custody at her home, arraignment by afternoon. Sarah sat beside me, hands trembling as she tried to hold her phone steady enough to read the indictment Karen had sent. 74 federal charges against the woman whose fake roadblock had cost her permanent nerve function. Will she go to prison? Sarah asked. If convicted on all counts? She's looking at decades. The bodily injury enhancement alone carries 10 years maximum. Combined with systematic civil rights violations, impersonation, RICO conspiracy, even with concurrent sentencing, she'd serve serious time. What about Morrison and the others? Reduced charges in exchange for testimony. They're cooperating fully, admitting Victoria explicitly instructed them to impersonate law enforcement authority. The next morning, I didn't watch Victoria's arrest. Couldn't, wouldn't, needed to maintain distance as a witness. But Marcus called me from his window across the street. Federal marshals just arrived, Marcus said, voice heavy with something between satisfaction and guilt. 3 vehicles. They're walking to her door now. I heard the professionalism in his description. 30 years of law enforcement training recognizing the choreography of federal arrest. Then silence. They're bringing her out, Marcus said quietly. Handcuffs. She looks shocked, like she genuinely didn't expect this. Victoria Cross had spent 5 years building fake authority, had created professional-looking protocols and official-seeming procedures, had convinced herself that HOA bylaws gave her law enforcement powers, and she'd never imagined that real authority, the kind carried by federal marshals with actual badges, would show up to dismantle everything. The arraignment happened fast. Victoria pleaded not guilty to all 74 federal counts. Bail set at $250,000, posted within hours. Pre-trial conditions included surrendering her passport, ceasing all HOA patrol activities, and having no contact with the 47 victim witnesses. Her attorney, a criminal defense lawyer named Robert Hayes who specialized in white-collar crime, held a brief press conference outside the courthouse. Ms. Cross maintains her innocence, Hayes said. She was operating a legitimate HOA security patrol authorized by community bylaws. The federal government is criminalizing normal community safety measures through selective and politically motivated prosecution. Karen watched the press conference from her office, then called me. Standard defense posture. Claim it's government overreach, that HOAs are allowed to have security patrols, that this is about an FBI agent using federal authority for personal vendetta. Will that work with a jury? Not after they watch Morrison block an ambulance on video? Not after they hear Sarah testify about permanent nerve damage? Not after 47 residents describe being illegally detained by fake cops? Karen paused. Hayes is a good attorney. He knows this case is bad. That press conference is laying groundwork for plea negotiations. You think Victoria will take a deal? Once her attorney reviews all the evidence, body cam footage, medical causation, victim testimony, her own fake cops testifying against her, he'll advise her to negotiate. The question is whether Victoria's ego will let her admit she was wrong about having authority. Over the next 3 weeks, discovery happened. Victoria's attorney received thousands of pages of evidence. body cam footage of 253 illegal interactions, financial records showing $380,000 spent building fake police force, training manuals where Victoria instructed patrol to impersonate authority, victim statements from 47 detained residents, medical timeline proving 8-minute delay caused Sarah's nerve damage, cooperation agreements from Morrison, Chen, Price, and Brooks. Marcus told me Victoria called him twice, threatening to expose his consulting fees if he testified. Both calls were recorded, witness tampering charges added to her indictment. 76 federal counts now. She still doesn't understand, Marcus said. Still thinks she can intimidate people into protecting her. Still believes her HOA authority means something. Sarah's occupational therapy appointments continued. Her hands had regained some function, but would never be fully steady. Her feet remained partially numb, affecting balance and requiring accommodations at work. Permanent disability caused by 8 minutes of fake authority blocking real emergency care. Dr. Patel wants me to testify about the medical timeline, Sarah said, flexing fingers that trembled despite her efforts to control them. Explain how immediate glucose administration would have prevented nerve damage, how each minute of delay increased the risk. It'll be hard. Reliving the ambulance delay, having defense attorneys question causation, let them question. The medical evidence is clear. 8 minutes made the difference between full recovery and permanent disability. Sarah looked at her shaking hands. Victoria needs to see what her fake roadblock cost. Needs to understand that playing cop has real consequences for real people. A month after indictment, Victoria's attorney requested a meeting with prosecutors. The plea negotiation everyone had expected. Torres called me afterward. Hayes wants to discuss disposition. He's reviewed the evidence, knows the case is unwinnable. Victoria's facing reality that 76 federal counts plus state charges means decades in prison if convicted on everything. What's she offering? Guilty plea to deprivation of rights causing bodily injury, impersonating officers, and RICO conspiracy. She'll admit the patrol lacked legal authority, that she instructed members to impersonate police, that the roadblock caused harm to Sarah. In exchange, prosecution drops the remaining charges and recommends 8 years federal prison. 8 years for 5 years of systematic civil rights violations? It's not ideal, but it guarantees conviction without trial, ensures Sarah doesn't have to testify about trauma, and gets Victoria significant prison time. Torres paused. It's your call. Sarah's the primary victim. If you want to push for trial, we go to trial. I looked at Sarah, who'd been listening to the conversation on speaker. Her trembling hands, her imperfect balance, her permanent reminder that fake authority had cost her something that would never heal. What do you think? I asked her. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, watching her fingers shake. Will she have to admit she was wrong? That the patrol was illegal? That blocking the ambulance caused my injury? Full allocution required, Torres said. She has to admit facts supporting each guilty plea, on record, in open court. Then I want the plea, Sarah said. I want her to stand in federal court and admit her fake cops caused permanent harm. I want it in the record that HOA presidents can't create police forces. And I want 8 years where she can't play law enforcement ever again. The federal courtroom was packed with the 47 residents Victoria's fake patrol had illegally detained over 5 years. They'd come to watch the woman who'd played police chief finally face real authority, the kind that came with actual judges and legitimate prosecutors and federal jurisdiction she couldn't wave away with HOA bylaws. Victoria Cross stood before Judge Elizabeth Morrison in a gray suit that looked nothing like the security consultant uniforms she'd designed for her fake officers. Her attorney, Robert Hayes, stood beside her, holding the plea agreement that would send his client to federal prison. Ms. Cross, Judge Morrison began, you're pleading guilty to 3 counts. Deprivation of rights under color of law causing bodily injury under 18 U.S.C. 242. Impersonating officers of the United States under 18 U.S.C. 912 and RICO conspiracy. Do you understand these charges? Yes, Your Honor. Victoria's voice was steady, but I watched her hands grip the podium, no longer the confident HOA president who'd claimed authority over emergency vehicles. Count 1 alleges that, on the date in question, you operated an illegal checkpoint that delayed an ambulance responding to a medical emergency, causing permanent nerve damage to the patient. Do you admit these facts? Victoria hesitated. Her attorney leaned in, whispered something. She straightened. Yes, Your Honor. The Willowbrook Community Security Patrol established a checkpoint at the neighborhood entrance. When an ambulance arrived without advance authorization, Patrol Officer Jake Morrison detained the vehicle for approximately 8 minutes while verifying proper documentation. During that delay, the patient, Sarah Carter, experienced complications from hypoglycemia that resulted in permanent peripheral neuropathy. Judge Morrison looked at the medical records. Ms. Cross, the evidence shows that immediate treatment would have prevented Mrs. Carter's nerve damage. Your checkpoint directly caused lasting injury. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. Count 2 alleges systematic impersonation of law enforcement. The plea agreement requires you to admit that your security patrol wore uniforms designed to resemble police, carried badges meant to project law enforcement authority, and conducted traffic stops without legal authorization. Do you admit these facts? Another pause. Another whispered conversation with her attorney. Victoria's facade was cracking now, the reality of federal prosecution finally breaking through her belief in HOA authority. Yes, Your Honor. I created the Willowbrook Community Security Patrol and equipped officers with uniforms, badges, and vehicles designed to project official law enforcement presence. I instructed patrol members to conduct traffic stops, establish checkpoints, and demand identification from residents. I believed HOA bylaws gave me authority for these activities. I was wrong. Those last 3 words seemed to physically pain her. 5 years of building fake authority, demolished by a federal plea requiring her to admit it had all been illegal. Count 3 alleges RICO conspiracy, using your HOA position to facilitate organized criminal enterprise, specifically collecting $34,000 in unauthorized fines through intimidation and fake law enforcement authority. Do you admit this? Yes, Your Honor. The patrol issued citations for traffic and vehicle violations. We collected fines totaling $34,000 from residents who believed the patrol had legitimate authority to enforce these penalties. We did not. Judge Morrison reviewed the plea agreement. The government recommends 8 years federal imprisonment, 3 years supervised release, $34,000 restitution to defrauded residents, and permanent prohibition from HOA leadership positions. Ms. Cross, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting you ran a fake police force that caused serious harm? Yes, Your Honor. Sarah sat beside me in the gallery, watching Victoria admit to the crimes that had cost her permanent nerve function. Her hands rested in her lap, trembling slightly, the physical evidence of what 8 minutes at an illegal roadblock had stolen. Judge Morrison called Sarah forward for victim impact statement. Sarah walked to the podium, and I watched her struggle with balance, the neuropathy in her feet making every step uncertain. She placed her shaking hands on the podium where Victoria's had been moments before. My name is Sarah Carter. I'm a high school teacher. I teach English literature, coach the debate team, help students find their voices. She held up her trembling hands. These are my tools. My hands hold books, grade papers, write feedback that helps teenagers become confident communicators. My feet carry me through classrooms, let me stand while teaching, allow me to be present for my students. She lowered her hands. On the day Victoria's patrol blocked my ambulance, I was having a hypoglycemic episode. My blood sugar had dropped dangerously low. Paramedics arrived within minutes of the 911 call. They were 8 minutes from our home to the hospital, a route they'd timed, a response they'd practiced. 8 minutes that should have saved me from permanent injury. But at Willowbrook's entrance, fake cops in convincing uniforms stopped the ambulance, demanded authorization paperwork for emergency vehicle access, argued with paramedics while my blood sugar dropped below the threshold where nerve damage begins. Sarah held up her hands again. These hands will shake for the rest of my life. My feet will be partially numb forever. I've had to modify how I teach, how I grade, how I move through my classroom. Because Victoria Cross thought HOA bylaws gave her authority over ambulances. She created training manuals for her fake police, spent $380,000 building a private law enforcement operation, instructed her officers to project authority, demand compliance, intimidate residents into submission. All of it illegal, all of it designed to make people believe she had power she never possessed. 8 minutes. That's all it took. 8 minutes of fake authority caused permanent damage that immediate care would have prevented. Dr. Patel's timeline proves it. Medical records document it. And my trembling hands remind me of it every single day. Sarah looked directly at Victoria. You played police chief for 5 years, wore fake badges, operated fake checkpoints, collected fake fines, and when real emergency vehicles tried to save someone's life, your fake cops blocked them because you thought HOA protocols mattered more than human suffering. I want the court to know that your 8-minute roadblock didn't just delay care. It stole my ability to hold a coffee cup steady, to write without my hand cramping, to walk without watching my feet because I can't always feel where they are. You took that from me because you needed to prove you had authority. Sarah stepped back. 8 years in federal prison won't give me back my nerve function. But maybe it'll teach the next HOA president that fake authority has real consequences. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Victoria, who was staring at her own hands. Hands that had signed fake citations, approved illegal checkpoints, created procedures for impersonating law enforcement. Ms. Cross, Judge Morrison said, you created a system that systematically violated constitutional rights while enriching yourself financially and psychologically. You intimidated elderly residents, illegally detained teenagers, extorted money from families, and blocked an ambulance during a medical emergency. The fact that you used HOA position as cover makes it worse, not better. This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release upon completion. You will pay $34,000 in restitution to the 47 residents you defrauded. You are permanently prohibited from serving in any HOA leadership capacity, and you will spend the next 8 years understanding that impersonating law enforcement is a federal crime with serious consequences. Victoria's legs seemed to weaken. Her attorney steadied her. Bailiff, remand the defendant into custody. Federal marshals, real ones with badges they'd earned, led Victoria away. The woman who'd spent 5 years playing cop was now learning what actual law enforcement looked like when it came for you. The 47 residents filed out quietly. Some approached Sarah, thanked her for speaking. Mrs. Chen hugged her carefully, mindful of the trembling hands. Marcus Webb waited until the courtroom emptied. I'm sorry, he said to Sarah, for helping her build it, for taking her money to make the fake cops look professional, for standing at my window watching your ambulance blocked and doing nothing. You're testifying against her, Sarah said. That counts for something. It doesn't give you back your nerve function. No, but it makes sure she can't create another fake police force. Sarah flexed her trembling fingers. 8 years. That's justice, even if it's not healing. 6 months after Victoria's sentencing, I stood at Willowbrook's entrance gate watching workers remove the last remnants of her fake police operation. The checkpoint equipment was gone. The patrol vehicle storage area had been converted to guest parking. The security office where Morrison had reviewed his fake traffic citations was now a community garden shed. Just a gate again. No roadblocks, no fake cops demanding papers, no 8-minute delays while residents suffered medical emergencies. Sarah stood beside me, leaning on my arm for balance. The neuropathy in her feet made uneven ground challenging. Her hands held a coffee cup with a special grip sleeve that compensated for the tremor. Adaptations, accommodations, the permanent reality of what Victoria's fake authority had cost. It looks normal now, Sarah said, watching the workers, like it never happened. Except it did. I looked at her trembling hands. Every day it did. The restitution checks had been distributed. $34,000 returned to the 47 families who'd paid illegal fines. Mrs. Chen used hers for the grandchildren's college fund. The teenager whose car Morrison had illegally searched donated his to civil rights organizations. Each check a small piece of justice for systematic violations. But money didn't restore Sarah's nerve function, didn't stop her hands from shaking when she graded papers, didn't give her back the steady balance she'd had before 8 minutes at a fake roadblock changed her life forever. Dr. Patel says the tremor might stabilize over time, Sarah said, setting down her coffee carefully. But it won't go away. This is permanent. Marcus Webb joined us at the gate, looking older than his 64 years. The guilt of helping Victoria build her fake police force had aged him in ways retirement never had. State Trooper Pension Board decided, Marcus said. They're reducing my benefits by 20% for the ethics violation, taking consulting fees to help design unauthorized security operations. Could have been worse, I said. Could have been honest from the start. Marcus looked at the dismantled checkpoint. I told myself I was just advising on security best practices, but I knew what Victoria was building. knew the uniforms were designed to look like police, knew the checkpoints were illegal, knew every traffic stop was impersonation, and I took her money anyway. You testified, Sarah said, helped federal prosecutors prove every element. After your ambulance got blocked, after watching you almost die at a roadblock I helped design. Marcus's voice cracked. That doesn't erase 3 years of choosing money over integrity. The HOA had been reformed, emergency board elections, new bylaws explicitly prohibiting security operations that resembled law enforcement, federal consent decree requiring annual civil rights compliance training, oversight ensuring no future president could build what Victoria had created. My phone buzzed. Update from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Victoria Cross transferred to FCI Victorville, serving year 1 of 8. The security consultant who'd played police chief learning what real authority looked like from the inside of a federal prison. Do you think she understands yet? Sarah asked. That she was wrong? That HOA bylaws don't give anyone law enforcement powers? I think she understands she's in prison. Whether she accepts that her fake authority was illegal, that might take longer. I thought about Victoria's allocution in court, the way she'd struggled to admit the patrol had operated without legitimate power. Some people believe so deeply in their authority that even federal prosecution doesn't shake it. Sarah flexed her trembling fingers, watching them shake despite her effort to control them. 8 years won't give me back my hands, won't restore the nerve function that 8 minutes destroyed, but maybe it'll stop the next HOA president from thinking they can create a private police force. We walked back to our house, Sarah moving slowly, carefully, her imperfect balance requiring attention to every step. The neighborhood looked peaceful now. No fake cops at checkpoints, no roadblocks delaying emergency vehicles, no fake badges and counterfeit uniforms projecting authority that didn't exist. But the damage was permanent. In Sarah's hands, that would always shake. In the 47 families who'd been terrorized by fake authority. In Marcus's conscience, that would carry guilt for helping build a system that hurt people. Victoria Cross had spent 5 years creating elaborate procedures for impersonating law enforcement. She'd bought uniforms, designed badges, written training manuals, established protocols, all of it professional looking, none of it legitimate. And when her fake cops blocked an ambulance to prove their authority, they'd triggered federal investigation that exposed every crime she'd committed while playing police chief. Some people learn that real authority doesn't come from badges you buy online or uniforms you design yourself. It comes from actual legal power granted by legitimate government processes. Victoria was learning that lesson in federal prison. 8 years to understand that impersonating law enforcement is a serious crime with serious consequences. 8 years to think about the nerve damage her 8-minute roadblock caused. 8 years where she couldn't create checkpoints or demand compliance or play cop with other people's lives and safety. If you've ever been stopped by someone claiming authority they didn't have, if you've ever complied with fake police because uniforms made you believe you had to, if you've ever watched HOA power become tyranny disguised as security, share your story. Let people know that HOAs can't create private law enforcement no matter what their bylaws claim. And remind them that impersonating officers is a federal crime, not a community amenity. Sarah and I sat on our porch, watching the sun set over Willowbrook Estates, a neighborhood that had learned the hard way that fake authority causes real harm, that professional-looking procedures don't make illegal activities legitimate, that when someone plays cop without actual legal power, people get hurt in ways that never fully heal. Victoria's fake badges were evidence now, her checkpoint equipment confiscated, her training manuals used to prove systematic impersonation. Everything she'd built to project authority became proof of federal crimes. And my wife's trembling hands remained the permanent reminder that 8 minutes of fake law enforcement had cost her something no prison sentence could restore. But at least the roadblock was gone. At least emergency vehicles could pass without fake cops demanding authorization. At least no other family would face what we'd faced when Victoria's fake authority blocked real emergency care. Some victories don't erase the damage. They just make sure it doesn't happen again.